Hello, good morning, our honorable audience in this webinar. I'm Suardana as the first presenter of our research paper entitled Exploring Students' Critical Stance in Deconstructing a Text. I'm delighted to present to you our paper, which will talk about how students were taught in critical ways of reading text. As principally a text must contain ideology or specific meaning. Critical reading in this case was related with critical theory, in which in this presentation the meaning or the message contained in the text which relate to the social issue or norm and value what the text talk about. That's what we are going to present to you this topic, which I will going to start by the next one. Well, audience, before we begin the discussion of the finding of our research, I initially will introduce the member of the team of our research. The first we have Putu Suarcaya. He is one of the lecturer at Faculty of Language and Art University, Ganesha University, Singaraja, Bali. His research interests is usually in critical theory of English as foreign language context and teacher for professional development. He is the leader of our research team. The next we have an Agong Sri Barustyawati. She is also the lecturer of Faculty of Language and Art, Ganesha University, Singaraja, Bali. Her research interests usually in material development in English as foreign language and teacher professional development. The last, myself, Suardana. I'm lecturer of English in the Faculty of Language and Art, Ganesha University, Singaraja, Bali. I usually have my research in English for specific purpose and translation as my specialties. We are all the team who wrote this research, who make this research, and we are going to tell you the next part of our presentation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, herewith the overview of our presentation today. First, in the introduction, and then we will review some related literature. The next will be the method of our research, and we will describe and explain to you the result of our finding and give the discussion before we conclude such the result in the conclusion section. Now the presentation will be continued by my friend for the next or the first session introduction.
Thank you, Pak Suardana, for opening our presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, let me carry on our presentation by presenting the introduction part. Our study was proposed because of current conventional EFL reading practices, which we consider discourage students to develop their criticality. Those reading practices uh, cover reading practices which focus more on cognitive activities. Second, conventional EFL reading practice which signifies more on critical thinking, higher order thinking skills is a term famously known in EFL, in Indonesian EFL classroom. Then the next conventional EFL reading practice is that reading practice is narrowed to locate specific meaning. The next is reading practice which is focused on analyzing structure of a text. And the fifth conventional practice is that reading which is focused on aberrant type of reading according to Rosenblatt. Then the next conventional EFL reading practice is that reading is designed to make meaning only within a text. And the last is the reading practice which is designed, the teaching of reading which is designed to accept what a text presents. Then the study challenged those current conventional practices by placing reading within cognitive activities plus social. And then the second, integrating higher order thinking plus social. The third, by locating broad issues for evaluation and connect them with local issues. And number 4, by connecting a text with other text. So that is a process of intertextuality here. The next is by focusing on afferent reading plus aesthetic reading. So that is some kind of appreciation, not involving not only reading but also feeling a text. And the last is by designing learning process that involving activity on the part of the students to challenge what a text presents. Therefore, this study was proposed to explore, number 1, students' ability in challenging a text. Number 2, students to explore students' critical stance relative to a text. And the next part is the literature review. There is only one theory which becomes the basis of this study. The theory is deconstruction theory proposed by Derrida. In this study, deconstruction practically serves as the technique in guiding the learners to critically explore the text. Deconstruction is used as a technique to challenge a text that contains structures of power which is manifested in a form of binary opposition. So analyzing the existence of binary opposition in a text is the key in this deconstruction theory. Deconstruction requires readers to keep interrogating the binary category. So meaning is deduced by interpreting what the deconstruction means. Ladies and gentlemen, the methodological parts and the results of our study are going to be presented by our colleague Ibu Anak Agung Sri Barustyawati. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Suardana and Pak Suarcaya. Now let's look at the method of the study. There were 33 EFL learners at the tertiary level of education were involved as the respondents of this study. And then the learners were required to read the English version of a short story entitled The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Next, they were asked to give the responses to the reading text based on deconstruction as a reading technique. And then finally, the gathered data were analyzed by using the content analysis method. These stages were set out in the teaching scenario, which can be seen as follows. So first, the students were introduced with deconstruction as a technique of investigating a text by identifying a binary opposition and then by interpreting its meaning. And afterward, a reading task was delivered, and this was conducted by distributing Scot Fitzgerald's work entitled The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. And then finally, the students had to deconstruct the story and create meaning from the revealed deconstruction. Now, having seen the method of the study, now let's see the results of the challenging texts. So these were conducted by deconstruction of the ideology of Benjamin Button and then the deconstruction of the physician or the medical personnel in the story. Now let's have a look at the deconstruction by using the binary opposition. In this case, the characters of Benjamin Button were opposed to a newborn baby. So a newborn baby in general usually has the following characteristics. Looks young, can't talk and walk, and doesn't have a beard. While on the contrary, Benjamin Button looks old and then can talk and walk and then has beard. And then here is the results of the deconstruction of the doctor or the medical personnel. So in the common medical personnel is usually portrayed as polite, friendly, and respectful, while the medical personnel doctor helping Benjamin's birth was impolite, annoying, and rude. Now let's look at the interpretation of the deconstruction process. So these were conducted by in two ways, by carrying out two ways. First is making meaning within a text, and then by intertextualizing meaning. Now, making meaning within a text was used to interpret the ideology of Benjamin Button's character as a newborn baby. So here he was portrayed as a man who is born with a specific defect and syndrome, and then he was also portrayed as an old man and then can talk and walk even when using a cane, and finally he has wrinkles on his face. While the interpretation using the intertextualizing resulted in general, medical personnel is viewed as a very patient, caring, gentle person to everybody in the hospital. On the contrary, medical personnel in the story of the Benjamin Button was portrayed as being impatient, disrespectful, and also harsh to Benjamin and his father. Having seen the interpretation of the deconstructed text. So here are some points that could be brought up into discussion. So the first one is that the students were able to delineate the binary oppositions they found in the short story by way of analyzing the characteristics of the characters depicted in the text. Second, the students made meaning by way of first internalizing what the text contains, and second, connecting meaning from the story with the student's life experience. However, irrespective of the two results above, the students were still unable to criticize the text by peeling out and criticizing the latent ideology hidden in the deconstruction. And then finally, the students' failures to show the critical standpoint to the text, we suspect, was caused by first, along conventional reading activities, and the second one is reading activities to accept facts as the way they have given. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you for your attention.